Hello, my name is Affarirs from Edukea Tanzania. Welcome to proceed with our last topic in Form 4, which is Africa in International Affairs. On the last session, we ended on the problems that face the OAU. So now we are going to see the objectives of OAU. The objectives refers to the goals which the member states plan to achieve by working under the organization. To mean that the objectives, these are the goals which the member states plan to achieve under the working of the organization. So let us see the organization goals which were planned to be achieved. The first one was to enhance unity among African states. To mean that OAU was aimed at enhancing the unity among African states, where the African states were supposed to unite and to cooperate in different matters so that they can come up as the one organ or one continent. So that was the first objective of formation of OAU. To mean that the African countries or African states were supposed to unite or to cooperate in performing different activities as the one country. So that was the objective number one. The objective number two was to eliminate all forms of colonialism in Africa. It means that African states agreed that the OAU or the objectives of OAU is to eliminate all forms of colonialism in Africa. To mean that after the coming of colonialism left the colonial rigors, which was still practicing in African states. So the main aim or the other aim of OAU was to eliminate those all forms of colonialism, whereby colonialism was exploiting the Africans and their natural resources. So the main aim of OAU was to eliminate all forms of colonialism. The third one was to promote international cooperation in line with UN and the Universal Declaration. It means that the OAU was to promote international cooperation. It means Africa to cooperate in international affairs by the cooperation with United Nations and the Universal Declaration. It means that OAU was formed to cooperate or to promote international cooperation with United Nations and the Universal Declaration, which was done in 1948, and the UN was formed in 1945. So these were organs which were performing the activities internationally or worldwide, but not all countries in the world were joined in UN. But the formation of OAU was the main aim to promote international cooperation in these organizations or organs. Another one was to coordinate cooperation and efforts to bring better life for African people. It means that to coordinate cooperation and the efforts to bring better life for African people. It means that OAU was formed in order to coordinate cooperation and efforts for the Africans in order to bring the better living standard of the Africans, whereby they will improve housing, the surplus, the water supply, and provision of education, as well as other services to the African people. So that was another objective of OAU. The fifth one was to defend the territorial integrity and the independence of the African states. It means after the attainment of independence, African countries agreed and suggested that and agreed that they have to defend or protect their territory and their independence, so that no any external interference or domination could take or retake their independence, which have been got from the colonialists. So the main aim of OAU was to ensure the member states are defending their territory and their independence for their states. So these were the objectives of OAU, or Organization of African Units. So let us see principles of OAU. It means principles, these are the guidelines which are to be followed by the member states of OAU in order to achieve their goals. The first principle was non-interference or no interference in the domestic matters of the member states. It means that the principle number one, or guideline number one, was there were no interference in domestic matters by the member states or in the member states. It means that the member states was not supposedly to interfere the domestic matters of the another member states. That was principle number one. It means that any member state could not interfere or should not interfere the other domestic matters of the member states. That was principle number one. The second one was the use of peaceful way in finding out the solutions to conflicts and the disputes between member states. It means that another principle was to use the peaceful way in finding out the solutions of settling the disputes or conflicts between the member states. As I've told you that there are some member states, or there are some countries in Africa which fall into conflict. So the best way or solutions to overcome that conflict was the use of peaceful way. So another principle was the use of peaceful way in settling the disputes or conflicts among the member states. Another was to accept the movement of non-alignment of Afro-Asian states. It means that another was to accept the movement of non-alignment of the Afro-Asian states or countries. It means these were like their brother countries. So they had to accept their movements. So that was another principle that were placed in OAU to be followed or to be guiding the organization of OAU. Another was to accept the movement, to respect the rights of status to exist as an independent country. It means that to respect the rights of status to exist as an independent country. It means that any member state had to respect the other member states as the independent country which exists in that organization. So any country in that organization was to respect their fellow member states as they have the status of existing as independent country in that organization. But another one was sovereign equality of all member states had to be respected by all member countries or member states. It means that the sovereign or freedom of doing anything in the country or doing the decisions in the country without foreign interference was to be respected by all member states in the organization. So there were no any country that would be disrespecting the sovereign equality of the other member states, because the principle was guiding them that the sovereign equality of all member states are to be respected by all countries or all member state countries. And the last one was condemning all political assassination and the encouragement of people to oppose domestic dictatorship government. It meant that another principle was the condemning of all political assassinations which was done in, or which were doing in African states. It means that there were political leaders who were assassinated, or who were assassinated by those opposite side of those leaders. So the main principle was to condemn all political assassination and the encouragement of people to oppose all dictatorial governments. After looking at the principles, let us see the benefits of OAU to Tanzania. It means Tanzania got some benefits from OAU. The first benefit, Tanzania gained fame by hosting the headquarters of the Liberation Committee in various countries such as Zimbabwe and Angola. It means that the first benefit was Tanzania gained fame by hosting the headquarters of the Liberation Committee in various countries like Zimbabwe and Angola. It means that Tanzania was providing the center for liberation of some African countries like Angola and Zimbabwe. So those countries were organizing their liberalization process or liberation activities in Tanzania so that they can fight or struggle for their independence. So that was the benefit of Tanzania from OAU. Another was through African Development Bank, Tanzania received some money for improvement of various sectors like agriculture and education. It means that Tanzania, or through the African Development Bank, Tanzania acquired or received the money from that bank in order to improve various sectors like agriculture and education. It means that education sector was supported by the financial assistance from African Development Bank. So the education system in Africa, in Tanzania, was improved as a contribution of money or finance that was provided from African Development Bank. But agricultural sector also was improved as it was gained, or it was allocated some money for the improvement of that sector in Tanzania. So that was the big benefit that Tanzania attained from the Organization of African Unity. But the third one, Tanzania made friendship with all countries which had joined the OAU through participation in various meetings of OAU members. It means that Tanzania made a friendship with other member states that were joined in OAU, so that Tanzania had many friends in Africa and were cooperating in different matters, because Tanzania was participating in the meeting of OAU, so she made friendship with other member states, and that was another benefit because the cooperation was at the good positive level and Tanzania was benefiting from that friendship. The last one was Tanzania got chances to give out its opinion over many problems through various meetings. It means that Tanzania was given the chance to give out opinions over many problems which were occurring in African or in the other member states of OAU. It means that Tanzania was contributing to provide or to give out the opinions which must be used or which can be used in solving the problems which were arose in different countries which were the members of OAU in the Organization African Unit meeting. This was another benefits. So these were the benefits of Tanzania from OAU. So let us see the failure of OAU, or Organization of African Unity. Through OAU succeeded, it had also failures which included the following. It means that apart from OAU to be succeeded or to be achieved some goals, but there were some failures which were faced that organization. And the first failure was OAU failed to bring better and good standard of living among the Africans. It means that the OAU failed to bring the better and good standard of living among the African people. It means that some countries which were the member of OAU failed to get better and good living standard, as the OAU was promised them to give the better living standard in their nations. But another, it failed to eradicate new colonial exploitation which was practiced by the countries in Western European countries. After its formation, African export to European markets continued to suffer from lower price determined by big powers. It means that OAU failed to eradicate new colonial exploitation that was done by European powers or European countries or Western European countries. So after its formation, the African export to European markets, it means that the African export or the export which was done by the African countries to the European markets was continuing to suffer from the lower prices of the African goods price. It means the price of African goods were suffering from lower prices as they were determined or fixed by big powers. It means that the African products, when they were exported to the European markets, they got the lower prices, and that made the decline in some African countries. So the OAU failed to countercheck that. So that was regarded as the failure of OAU. But the another one, it failed to solve political conflicts which normally led to the rise of civil wars and the overthrow of the elected government. For example, Ghana, when Dr. Kwame Nkrumah in 1966 was overthrown. It means that the OAU was failed to solve the political conflicts which were facing the African countries and the overthrowing of elected leaders. So OAU did not take the action to countercheck the political conflicts which were facing the member states of OAU and to eliminate the overthrowing of elected leaders in the member states. For example, Ghana, when Dr. Kwame Nkrumah in 1966 was overthrown. So OAU failed to eliminate or to countercheck those problems. The another one was it failed to prevent interstate conflicts. It means that OAU, Organization of African Unit, was failed to countercheck the interstate conflicts, the conflicts which were involving the member states. It means you could find that the one member state is in conflict with other member states. For example, Uganda and Tanzania in 1978 got into conflicts that led to the occurrence of Kagera War, and Julius Kambarage Nyerere in Tanzania and Idi Amin Dada in Uganda. So OAU failed to prevent that interstate conflict. And in 1990, Kenya and Somalia became in conflicts, and the OAU did nothing on that conflict that was happening. So that was regarded as the failure of OAU. And those were some failures of Organization of African Unit. Despite its failures, OAU existed for almost 37 years. It means that despite of its failures, the OAU, or the Organization of African Unit, was lasted or was lived for 37 years. In the late of 1990, Mr. Muammar Gaddafi, Libyan head of state, proposed to other member head of states to create new organization which could solve the problems which was failed to be solved by the OAU. It means that in 1990s, Mr. Muammar Gaddafi of Libya as head of state was suggested or proposed to other head of states members to create the new organization which will come up with strategies and the policies to countercheck or to solve the problems which was failed to be eliminated by the OAU. His proposal was taken positively and the member states accepted to form OAU. It means accepted to form the new organization which was AU, African Union, the Union of African Countries. It means the suggestion or proposal of Mr. Muammar Gaddafi of Libya head of state was accepted and agreed, and that's why AU, African Union, was formed. The formation of African Union. AU is the Organization of African Countries which originally started by the declaration to the head of states and government of the OAU to establish African Union. It means that AU was the Organization of African Countries which was resulted from the declaration of the head of states to form the new organization. It was agreed during the OAU summit at Sirte, Libya in 1999. It means that the formation of OAU was agreed during the OAU summit in Sirte, Libya in 1999. As the Libya head of state, Mr. Muammar Gaddafi, suggested that to other head of states of the member states, and they agreed to form the new organization which would replace Africa or Organization of African Units, and that's why the AU was formed. In the following years, during the Rome summit, Togo head of states and the government adopted the Constitutive Act of the Union. It means that in the following year, it means in 20,000, during the Rome summit, Togo head of state and the government adopted the Constitutive Act of the Union. The Lusaka summit of 2001 further gave the final go-ahead for establishment of the AU, which was born in Durban, South Africa in 2002. It means that the go-ahead for the establishment of AU was born in Durban in South Africa in 2002. So what was the objectives of AU? It means the AU was formed in 2002. So after the formation, there were some objectives that was planned to be achieved. The first objective was to create the greater unity and solidarity between the African countries and the people themselves. It means that the first objective was to achieve the greater unity and the solidarity between the African countries and the people themselves. It means that the AU was to achieve the greater unity and the solidarity among the people of Africans and their countries in general. The second one was to accelerate the political and the socio-economic interrelations among Africans. It means that was to accelerate or to increase the relationship in political, social, and economic matters among the African states, as OAU did, but the AU was intensified the acceleration in the political, economic, and the social matters relations among the African nations or African states. And the third one was to promote and defend African common interest. It means was to promote and defend African common interests. It means that the formation of AU was to promote and defend African common interests, whereby the OAU failed to do so. So the African states, after the formation of African Union, was aimed to promote and defend African common interests, which will lead them to achieve their goals. Another, to promote peace, security, and stability in Africa. It means that another objective was to promote peace, security, and stability among the African states. So the African countries were cooperating together in order to ensure the maintenance of peace, security, and stability among the Africans. The another was to defend the sovereign, territorial integrity, and independence of member states. It means that the another objective was to defend the sovereignty, the freedom of the states to make decisions without any foreign interference. Territorial integrity means to defend the boundary of the country, and independence of the member states means to defend the independence of the member states, the territorial boundary of the member states, and the freedom of the country of the member states to make decisions without any foreign interference. And the another or the fifth objective was to encourage international cooperation. As I have told you that AU or African Union was aimed at encouraging the international cooperation in different matters with the line of UN or United Nations and the Declaration of Human Rights. It means that the another objective was to encourage international cooperation between the African states and the international affairs or international external world. Another one was to establish the necessary conditions which enable Africa to play its rightful role in the global or world economy through international negotiations. It means that the another aim or objective was to establish necessary conditions which would enable Africa to play its rightful role in the global or world economy through international negotiation. It means was aimed to ensure that African countries are playing their rightful role in the global or world economy through the international negotiations or discussions. But the last one was to work with the relevant international parties in the elimination of preventable disease and the promotion of health on the continent. It means that the another one was to ensure that there is the elimination of the dangerous diseases and promotion of health throughout the continent. It means that the diseases which were facing the African countries were to be eliminated, and to ensure that the people of the African countries have the good health. And then the another was to promote sustainable development at the economic, social, and cultural levels, as well as the integration of economies. It means to promote sustainable development at the level of economic, social, and cultural levels, as well as integration of economics. And the last one, to promote democratic principles and institutions, popular participation, and good governance. It means democratic principle in African countries, institutions, popular participation, and good governance among the African states. Until there, this is the end of our lesson. So I would like to give you an exercise that will include the one question. Exercise, and it is explain the objectives of OAU. Let me add there another one. The second one is assess the benefits of Tanzania from OAU. So until there, this is the end of our lesson. You have to perform these questions that I've given you. So this the exercise. So I would like to thank you being with me until the end of our lesson. I welcome you in the next section. Bye bye.